Namaste, everyone. I welcome you all to today's Yes Talk titled Enhancing Human Intelligence Using Artificial Intelligence. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Kushal Shah. I will give a quick introduction for him. Dr. Kushal Shah is an alumnus of IIT Madras and was earlier a faculty at IIT Delhi and IISER Bhopal. He has also worked in two startups as principal data scientist. He is now a faculty member at Sitare University, which was started in 2022 to provide high quality computer science education free of cost to bright students from underprivileged backgrounds. He is also developing a free self learning portal for data science and machine. Dr. Kushal, welcome. We are so delighted to have you with us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to an interesting session with you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And thanks to the founder of Yes, Professor Bijlani, and Sonic also for introducing me to him. Would you like me to wait for a couple of minutes? Are we expecting any more people or should I start?
So they joined during the session. You can go ahead.
Okay, ठीक है. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you so much once again. So the topic for today's discussion is enhancing human intelligence using artificial intelligence. So here I am going to talk about both human intelligence and of course what is AI. But my objective in this talk is not just to provide a solution that you can use today, but also to talk about a solution that we can build together for the future. Because although AI is our present, AI is a technology that we have as of now, but it is an evolving technology. And we can either depend on others to build it for us, or we can participate in that process. Now one may ask that how can I build AI? I am not a computer scientist, I'm not an engineer, how can I build AI? But the answer is that all of us can. And when we say building AI, that requires a lot of inputs from many different kinds of people. And when you see chat gpt and various such other AI tools, of course a large part has been played by computer scientists, but there is also a lot of work that has been done by other people as well in that process. So today I'll briefly talk about that and why it is very important for us, Indians and spiritual people to participate in that process, because it has very important implications for our future as individuals and also our future as a group and as a society. So before we get into the actual details of the process, we need to first, spend a few minutes on discussing what is intelligence to begin with. We are saying that we are talking about enhancing human intelligence using artificial intelligence. But before that, we need to understand what is this intelligence. Now, if you look at it from a scientific perspective, frankly speaking, there is no clear definition of intelligence. We have a definition of a lot of things in science, but intelligence is something that has evaded even the best of scientists as of now. So although we are trying to build AI, but we actually have a very vague definition of what AI actually is. But we can turn to our scriptures because they have provided a definition. Now that definition may not be exactly applicable in a scientific sense, but we do have a definition that is useful for our discussion at least, and from a practical perspective at least. So if we look at our literature, the word in Hindi or Sanskrit for intelligence is buddhi. And buddhi or intelligence, as we know, comes in many varieties. So when we are saying that we want to enhance human intelligence, now the question is enhance human intelligence for what purpose? Because we know that intelligence can lead to positive outcomes. It can lead to negative outcomes also. Some of the criminals in our society are also highly intelligent people actually. So intelligence can go both ways. So that is very beautifully explained in our scriptures, and there is a concept of sattvic intelligence, rajasic intelligence, and tamasic intelligence, and understanding the difference between them holds a lot of importance to understand what intelligence is all about and how AI can help over here. So sattvic intelligence is described in Bhagavad Gita 18.30, and here Krishna says, the intellect which knows the path of work and renunciation, what should be done and what should not be done, fear and fearlessness, bondage and liberation, that intellect is sattvic or pure. So here what Krishna is saying is that if you are able to discriminate between what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, and from an absolute spiritual perspective, what is real and what is unreal, then that intelligence is sattvic. In comparison, there is something called Rajasic intelligence, which Krishna talks about in the next verse, 18.31. And here he says, that by which one wrongly understands dharma and adharma, and also what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, that intellect, O Arjuna, is Rajasic. So here, in the case of Sattvic intellect, we have a clear understanding of what is right, what is wrong. In the case of Rajasic intellect, we have a confused mind. We are not sure about what is right, what is wrong, and we make mistakes. Tamasic intellect is the extreme case where, where the mind is completely enveloped in darkness, and the person in consideration sees adharma as dharma and all things perverted. So the tamasic case, for example, if you take the case of Duryodhana from Mahabharata, that is a good example of tamasic intellect, because that guy saw everything perverted. For him, dharma was exact opposite of what dharma ought to be. So now when we are talking about enhancing intellect, we are not talking about enhancing tamasic or rajasic intellect. We are talking about enhancing sattvic intellect, because that is what really matters from a spiritual perspective. So currently, if we see our state, most of us are in actually a mixture of all these three states. For a common human being like us, it is not possible to compartmentalize us completely into one of these three baskets. All of us have components of all these three components. So for in certain domains, we have a lot of clarity about what is right, what is wrong. In some other domains, our intellect is perverted. We think that eating, let's say, a lot of oily food is good because it tastes good on our tongue, but it is actually a bad thing. So that's a sign of completely perverted thinking. And Rajasic intellect is also there, where we are confused. When we are not sure that in a given situation whether we should take step one or step two. So in general, for all of us, we are in various stages of these three intellects, and the goal should be to enhance the sattvic component of our intellect and reduce the rajasic and the tamasic intellect, so that we have extreme clarity about what is right, what is wrong, what is real, and what is unreal. So when we are talking about enhancing human intelligence, to be more precise, we are talking about enhancing the sattvic component of our intelligence. And the question is, how can artificial intelligence help in this process? And why is it even necessary? Because, since time immemorial, there have been people with very high levels of sattvic intelligence all over the world, including India, who have been able to enhance their intelligence without requiring any such AI tool. So of course it is definitely possible to enhance your sattvic intelligence without using AI, but AI can act as an enhancer. AI can act as a facilitator, which can help in the process. So it's not that without AI you can't do, but with AI you can do better. So how did people enhance their sattvic intelligence before AI was born? And the standard way of enhancing the intellect was through literature. In the case of India, we have the Vedas, and we have a lot of other texts which have come from the Vedas. And reading these spiritual literature, having a discussion with the guru, this was a standard way of enhancing sattvic intelligence. So in any spiritual circle, be it in India or elsewhere, there is a lot of emphasis which is placed on reading the scriptures and satsang. So satsang does not just mean that you have a banter and you have fun and then you disperse. Satsang means that you actually meet and have a very detailed discussion about what you have read in the scriptures and try to understand that at a much deeper level. Because if you are confined to your own interpretations, they can be wrong. It's only when you talk about it with somebody else and verify whether your thinking is right or wrong, only then you get to know whether you're thinking in the right direction or not. So the point is that reading these scriptures and reading books in general is extremely necessary, extremely important, but it is not sufficient. Because you can have you could have read tons of books, but you could still have a tamasic intellect, because you would have obtained a completely perverted interpretation out of all these books, which we actually see in our society. So because of that, it is very important to have access to a guru, or have access to a teacher, or somebody who knows more, with whom you can discuss properly and figure out whether what you're thinking is right or not. But the problem is that how do we even know that such a guru exists? So here Buddha gave a very nice set of suggestions, which I think is extremely relevant for everybody. So he says that you should not believe in something just because you have read it somewhere, and you should not believe in something just because you have heard it from somewhere, or if you have found it to be written in some books, no matter how sacred they may be. You should not even believe somebody just because you think that he or she is your teacher, because how do you know that somebody is a teacher? You don't know. There are no we don't have a scale by which we can measure a person and know whether he's a valid teacher or not. So if you actually think about it, what we have access to is our own mind. That is what we are sure of. That is what we can trust to some extent, at least. Because even if you want to trust a teacher or a book, you are doing that through your own mind only. There is nothing other than the mind that you are using to have trust on any other external thing. So the moment you say that I have a trust on person X, I have a trust on book Y, I have a trust on some channel Z, it is all coming through your mind only. So all the trust that you have on anything else, that trust is through your mind. So unless your mind is sharp and pure and clear, you cannot have trust on anything else. So the first thing to be done is to develop our own reason. So here Buddha says that when you find that anything agrees with reason, then you have to accept it and live up to it. But the problem is that this reasoning capability in us is also limited. We may be very intelligent, we may have obtained good marks in our school, college, whatever, but that does not mean that our reasoning is foolproof. Even great scientists make mistakes in their reasoning. So the thing with reasoning is that it is important to depend on it. It is important to have that as a yardstick. But reasoning also needs improvement, because the human mind is likely to go into wrong ways of thinking. And again, how do you figure out whether you're thinking, whether your reasoning is right or not? It is only when you discuss that with somebody else and have a open conversation and brainstorming to figure out whether what the other person is saying is meaningful or not, and whether what you are saying makes sense to the other person or not. That is the only way to figure out whether your reasoning is working fine or not. And this is what was used in our ancient traditions, and this is what is used in science as well. If you look at scientists like even Einstein, Feynman, whatever, it is not that if they have said something that is accepted as gospel truth by the whole scientific community, they have to put out their idea in the community, then the community debates about it, discusses it, and only when it makes sense to the community is it accepted as something which is true. The same thing holds true for anything else also that applies to our life. You cannot say that just because I am thinking in this manner, this has to be right. You cannot do that. You have to let it out into a wider circle, even if not the public, at least a circle of friends that you have, and have an open conversation about it and see whether it makes sense to a larger body or not. So the question is, how do I develop this reasoning ability? As I just said that, the way to do it is in the form of a dialogue, and traditionally our scriptures, if you look at the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita also, they were all written in the form of a dialogue between the student and the teacher. And it was not that the teacher said something and the student accepted it, blindly. That was never ever the case in the Indian tradition. There was always a situation of questioning. In the Gita also, if you see, Krishna says something and then Arjuna questions back that 2 minutes back you said something else, now you are saying something else. It does not make sense to me. And then Krishna then tries to explain, okay, this is what I was actually trying to say. And the same thing is there in the Upanishads also, where the rishis are trying to say something and there is a student who's trying to understand. If it doesn't make sense, then the student asks back that, Rishi, you said something, but this doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain to me again? I see a contradiction. And that is how learning used to happen. And that is how learning still happens. But the problem is that such teachers are very, very hard to find. And even if you do find such teachers, for example, I personally know some people who are currently in India who can be very good teachers for me, but they don't have time. They are too busy with so many other things that even if I write an email to them, they don't have time to respond. So then what do I do? And this is precisely where AI can help us. Now, again, I have to be very careful and make it very clear that when I'm saying that AI can be helpful in this process, it does not mean that AI can completely solve our problem. What I'm saying is that AI can be a guide in this process. It can be a tool in this process that you can use to improve your own understanding. So what is AI? So before proceeding further, I will not get into, technical details of what AI is, but in a nutshell, if you look at it from a perspective of ChatGPT, which is the tool of AI which has made AI so popular, from that perspective, if you look at ChatGPT, what ChatGPT is basically a text processing tool which processes text using intelligence. Now, what do I mean? When you ask ChatGPT a question, it generates an answer. Now, this was not a big deal. This could have been done 10 years back also. But what has changed is that, first of all, the answers are usually non-intuitive. That it is not, you do not get an obvious answer that was fed by somebody else. ChatGPT is able to generate an answer which is highly non-intuitive. And the second thing which is really amazing about ChatGPT is that it is able to answer a very wide variety of questions. So ChatGPT as a tool is not just for answering physics questions or not just for answering questions related to computer science, but even if you ask it spiritual questions, it gives you an answer. Now whether that answer is right or wrong is a different topic, which we will also touch upon. But the point is that ChatGPT does give you an answer which is at least counterintuitive, or I would say not non-obvious, and from a very wide variety of sources. And this is what has made ChatGPT so nice. So how is ChatGPT able to do that? So what ChatGPT does is that when you ask ChatGPT a question, it predicts what the next word should be. Now, how it is doing that, we will not get into it. But basically, what ChatGPT is doing is that given a text, which is your question, the user's question, it is trying to predict what the next word should be. And building this word by word, it is able to come up with that particular answer. So this process is what can help us in our spiritual journey, that the questions that you thought you would ask your teacher or a guru, and that since because that guru is not available, you can ask that question to ChatGPT and get an answer. Now, as I said, that answer may be right, may be wrong. That's a different topic, which we will come to in a moment, and that's a very important topic. But right now, what is important to know is that AI can answer your spiritual questions. That is the key point to remember. And this is exactly where the AI technology can help you in enhancing your reasoning capabilities. So as I just said, AI is basically a way to simulate this question answer behavior. And here, when we are talking of AI, we are specifically referring to the context of ChatGPT, where it is able to give you a human-like answer for any question that you give it. Okay. And we are specifically talking in the context of conversational AI, which is what ChatGPT is. So that is a technology that simulates a human like dialogue. So like if you had a dialogue with a rishi during the times of Upanishad, that dialogue would be something similar to what you can have with ChatGPT today, without any restriction of time, place, or money. It is a free tool to use, and you can use it wherever you are, without any restrictions. So now the question is, how can such an agent, how can, let's say, ChatGPT, for example, help us in improving our reasoning abilities? And that is the question that we have. And when we are talking about reasoning abilities, we are, again, to emphasize, we are not talking about generic reasoning abilities. We are talking about reasoning abilities in the context of sattvic intelligence, which means differentiating between what is right and wrong, differentiating between what is real and unreal, and improving our overall discriminative abilities, which take us forward on the path of our spiritual journey. So this is, for example, a simple question that I asked to ChatGPT while preparing these slides. And the question was, is it a good idea to talk rudely to others? And I did not want it to give a generic answer. So I was specific. I said, give me a specific answer from the Bhagavad Gita. So it said, the Bhagavad Gita, a sacred Hindu scripture, encourages virtuous and righteous behavior. It emphasizes the importance of treating others with respect and kindness. While it may not provide a specific words on talking rudely, which is actually true. I was quite surprised that it was able to get this answer, because Bhagavad Gita actually does not have a specific verse on talking rudely. But it does say that the general teachings of the Gita advocate for maintaining a calm and compassionate demeanor. And then it gives me a specific verse, which is, chapter 16, verse 3, where Krishna is talking about some qualities. And although they are not directly related to, being rude or being polite, but they do, direct, towards being polite, because, it says, it talks about humility, kindness, which means that you should not be rude, because if you're rude, then you're not being kind, and you do not have humility. So this is, for example, I wanted to know whether in a given situation, is it okay to be rude? And ChatGPT is clearly saying me, no, boss, this is not right. You should not be rude to anybody. And it also gave me a specific verse from the Gita where I could find a connection. Now, again, I would like to emphasize that the Gita, as ChatGPT says, does not have a very direct verse on being rude, but it has verses which are related to being rude. And ChatGPT was intelligent enough to give you that answer. So then I asked it another question. I said, that, okay, let me not write Bhagavad Gita, let me write Hindu scripture, so that, I am generic, and let's see what it gives. So now it again gave me the same, the Gita words, 16.3. But now I don't know whether this was because I had asked it Gita just in the previous verse and it remembered my choice, and so it gave me, so that I don't know. But now here the interesting thing to note is that now it is saying that it is telling about 16.3, and it is saying that one of these qualities is amanitvam, which means humility or absence of arrogance. But the thing is that this word now does not exist in 16.3. So this is a case of hallucination where ChatGPT gave me an answer which looked very all right. And it is actually all right because it is very close to what I was asking for. But now when I started, pushing it a little more, it started generating rubbish, which is actually not, present. So that is why generative AI cannot be trusted blindly, and it needs to be verified. And this creates a problem. And this is exactly where I am going to propose something that we can build together, which can solve this problem for us as individuals and for the greater, humanity who are interested in this particular pursuit. So here I'm showing you, 16.3 verse and the actual translation by Ram Sukdas ji, translated in English. And it says that radiance, forgiveness, fortitude, purity, freedom from malice and vanity, these are the marks of a person with divine nature. And we can see that this give a hint towards, not being rude, but of course it is not directly related to, that particular thing. So next, what I did is that, I told it specific, okay, now I don't want a verse from Gita. Give me a verse from some other Hindu scripture, because I want to see, okay, Gita does not have something specific to being rude. Now, is there some other verse where you can tell me, what happens when I am rude to somebody else? So now it gave me a verse from Taittiriya Upanishad, from the Shikshavali Anuvaka 11, and it tells me about something, and it says it translates to speech that does not cause distress. Now it is now giving me a specific verse, and now the question is, how do I again verify? Because just 2 minutes back, I noticed that ChatGPT has a problem of hallucinating. It tells something that does not exist, although it is not 100% wrong, but half the answer was wrong. So now I know that I cannot trust ChatGPT blindly, which means I need to verify. So now this is where the real challenge is, because if I cannot trust ChatGPT and if I have to verify, I as an individual do not have efficient ways of verifying what ChatGPT is telling me. Because the simple answer is that to verify, I have to go back to the scriptures. So when ChatGPT says that, okay, Taittiriya Upanishad Shikshavali Anuvaka 11 has this thing, I have to go to Taittiriya Upanishad, open the book, and go to that particular verse and see whether that particular verse is there or not. And that is a very, very inefficient process for two reasons. First of all, I may not have all those books available in my library. I may have a copy of Gita. I may have a copy of maybe one or two Upanishads, but I may not have the three Upanishads. I may not have the Vedas. I may not have everything. And the second problem is that even if I have that particular book, it is very difficult for me as an individual to manually go and read through the book and find out whether that particular information is there or not. If I had the knowledge and wherewithal to do that, why would I even ask ChatGPT? I would directly go and read all the Upanishads and be done with it. So here what we have seen is that AI as a tool has the power to give us answers to our spiritual queries, which are relevant, but it is not dependable. So now the solution is that we have to build this into a solution which is dependable. So just because a person has some flaws doesn't mean that you discard the person, because that person may have other good qualities that can be useful. The same thing is true for AI as well. So AI as a tool is very useful in finding useful information, and it can also help in improving reasoning abilities. How do you do that? So when you give a situation to an AI tool, you can even ask it to reason about it and tell you whether your reasoning was right or not. Now, again, the tool will do it for you, but whether it is doing it effectively or not is currently under question and needs to be developed further. So now the question is, how do we develop this further? What can we as individuals do? Of course, computer scientists around the world are, doing a lot in improving these AI tools, removing the problem of hallucination, removing the problem of wrong answers. They are doing a lot. But the good news is that we as individuals, even without knowing how to write a program, even without knowing how to write AI, can make significant contributions in this process. So let me give you a simple example. So let's say I want to know about Rajas. I want to know that where in the Gita you have Rajas. So if you have a copy of Gita available in this manner, it is virtually impossible for you to go through all the verses and look for the word Rajas and see where it is. If you want to know where has Krishna spoken about Buddhi, it is virtually impossible for you actually, go through each of the 700 verses and figure out where the word Buddhi is mentioned. It is just practically impossible. But instead of that, if let's say the scriptures, all the verses were available in this format as a Google sheet. So this is a Google sheet that I have created, where I have actually manually done it myself. Me and my wife have done it ourselves, where we have put in all the, chapter numbers, verse numbers, the speaker, all the Sanskrit verses, the translation, and even the questions which are related to this particular verse. So now if you have such an Excel file, let's say, available, I can just do Control F and I can type Rajas over here in, in this script, and immediately it will, find out verses where that word is there, and I don't even have to bother about it. Now, this is also, not so easy for everybody, because, if I, let's say, have, 100 different scriptures, Gita, Upanishads, Vedas, Puranas, I have 100 different scriptures. I cannot practically go to every single Excel file and do Control F and search for that thing. That will take so much time that my interest will lose and I will feel hungry and I would want food, and not spiritual answer. So the idea is that we have to bring it into a format that makes it very easy for people to search and find information that is useful, and ensure that every single word that they are getting from our tool is authentic. Because unless that trust factor is there, unless we can assure our users that what you are seeing from our tool is 100% authentic, they will not be much interested in it, because nobody has the time and energy to first search for something and then go and verify whether it is authentic or not. That nobody is going to do. So if AI is to be useful for the spiritual purpose, it is necessary to make it absolutely authentic. And that is the process that I have started doing, and this is where I would love to have help from all the participants of this team. So I am building a database. So there is something called GitHub, where I'm uploading my data sets for various scriptures. I'm currently the Bhagavad Gita part is done. Patanjali Yoga Sutras part is done. Upanishads I have started. Parts of Mahabharata are done. Parts of Ramayana are done, and some other few other things are also done. So what we are doing is creating such Excel files, for example, so for without getting into a lot of technical jargon. So we are creating such Excel files of all our databases. So taking whatever sources are there, either online or if it's there in a book, we are typing it ourselves and converting into a completely digital format, which is easy to search. We are uploading it over here, which is free and which is accessible for anybody to download and use it in any way. But this is not something where we have stopped. We have gone one step further, and we are also developing a simple search engine that people can use to ask any spiritual question that they like and get a relevant answer. So now for every question, you may not get an answer, because currently our database is limited. We don't have all the scriptures which are online. But our hope is that, maybe a couple of years down the line, we will have a large enough repository of scriptures which will be able to answer almost any spiritual question that you may have. So for example, here it says, the question that I asked is, what is the best way to live? This is the question that I asked this tool. And it told me that, here is a verse from Bhagavad Gita that answers your question. And it is from chapter 9, verse 27. This is the Sanskrit verse that you have. And this is its translation, which says that whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in service, whatever you give, whatever austerity you practice, O Arjuna, do it as an offering for me. Such a beautiful answer. And we know that this is 100% authentic, because this answer has not been generated by the AI tool, but rather retrieved by the AI tool from the database that I have. And because I know that the database that I have is 100% authentic, all the information there is 100% authentic, and there are no new words which have been generated by the I can guarantee that this information is fully authentic. And this is what I am trying to build, and this is where I would love to get help from everybody. Yes, Vishwarat, you have a question?
Hi, Kushal.
Hi.
Very exciting project, actually.
Thank you.
So, my question is that, so this database that you have, right? Let's take this example, this specific question. What is the best way to live? So, my question is, does this tool identify get that answer by speaking to this data set with that specific question? So I would remember that in the spreadsheet there was a last column with the questions, right? And my question is like, does it lift this answer from that column and kind of map it here?
Right, that's a very good question. So now what happens is that the kind of questions that people can ask are almost of infinite variety. So if you take even this question, what is the best way to live? This question itself can be asked in 20 different ways.
Correct.
What is a good way to live? What is a good life? What is the purpose of life? There are many different ways of asking the same question.
Yeah.
So where AI helps is that I do not have to fit in the exact same question in my database. So what AI is good at is figuring out, is your particular question by the user similar to something which exists in the database.
Okay. So the
Right?
questions are important.
So that's actually a very important point. So now I can also do it without having this question column. So what I can do is that I can take this translation, which is there over here, and I can see whether this translation for a verse is similar to the question or not.
Okay.
And this is what AI systems actually do, because for general AI systems, it is practically impossible to have this additional column of questions, because the internet is
Correct.
so huge, there's so much data that they can't do this additional question column. So when we talk about information retrieval in the AI domain in general, what they do is that they take a user query and they do a similarity search against the available documents, which in our case would be the translations.
Got it.
But the current AI technology for doing that is not very effective. It makes mistakes. It is not very effective. And because the data set is small, I have been able to manually add these questions. But even if you ask a question which is different from this, it will give you an answer if it is similar to at least one of the questions, even if not
Similar.
exactly
Okay.
the same. It doesn't have to be exactly the same.
Okay. Got it.
However, I am also
Thank you.
working on the AI part also, where I'm developing some ways of making the similarity search between the translation and the question more effective. Because as this data set grows, I will not be able to add questions for every single scripture that I may have in my data set. So this is a hard problem, and many other researchers around the world are also working on it. And I'm also trying to do something. How far I'll succeed, I don't know. But yeah, we are definitely trying. So for that also to be successful, it is extremely important that we come together to build this database. And this is where everybody can contribute. So to build an AI tool, you may need a computer science degree, or you may need to know a lot of programming and stuff like that. But to build this database, you do not require any of that. And building this data set is 80% of the job done, because the rest of the AI stuff tools are already being developed by a lot of people around the world. And, we of course can improve it, and we will improve it. But the hard part in AI, which may be counterintuitive for most people, is building good data sets. And that is where, we can contribute as individuals, irrespective of our technical background. All that we need is a laptop and some time and some willingness to contribute. And this is something very, very important that we need to do to make this knowledge available to everybody. Currently, this knowledge is available in the form of books, in the form of other traditional material, but that is very hard for people to comprehend and digest. If we can make it available in a format which is usable by a search engine, then that material becomes much more readily available for people, because when people ask a question, they will get an answer which is relevant to their question from a scripture in the data set. And that will make them much more interested, much more intrigued by what they can find from this data set. So for those who are interested in exploring this further, this is the QR code which you can scan to get to the site. I'm also typing the link in the chat box, which you can get access to this data set and explore this and see what you can do with it. So this is the end of my talk. To summarize very quickly, developing sattvic intelligence requires a study of scriptures. There is no doubt about it. This is known from time immemorial. But the thing is that reading a lot of scriptures is very difficult for most people. And it is very, very time consuming, very, very difficult. So we have to bring the scriptures in a format which is more in a dialogue way and more easily accessible, so that I can get to know a relevant answer from the scripture based on the question that I have. And this is a work that we are doing, and I'll be very happy to get your help. And if anybody is interested, please do drop me a message or an email. I'll be very happy to discuss this further with you. So with that, I thank you all for your kind attention, and happy to get any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Kushal sir. Thanks a lot for a very interesting and insightful session. We really appreciate your effort, your work, and your research in your field. Thanks a lot. And
Thank you.
as Kushal sir said, we can open for questions now. Anyone has a question, anyone wants to share something, please go ahead. Yes, Vishwanath sir has raised the hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, Kushal, one question I had was regarding commentaries, right? So, Bhagavad Gita has a lot of commentaries by various spiritual gurus. So, is there a plan to like incorporate that also at some stage?
Absolutely. The commentary, that's a extremely important point, and commentaries are extremely important. The reason is that the words and the translation are very, very short. They are devoid of a lot of context. And to make sense of these verses, it is very important to read the commentaries, because the commentaries have a lot of contexts and often even real life examples. So there are a lot of great rishis and authors who have given their commentaries with a lot of such examples. So the idea is to incorporate those commentaries, and when a person asks a question, also look for answers within those commentaries separately, separate from the translation that that particular words may have. So yes, commentaries is also a plan, definitely. But again, it's not easy, because most of these commentaries are either available as hard copies, or or PDFs, which are not easily very, very easily readable by a machine. So it's taking some time, but yeah, we are on it.
So I am definitely interested. Just talking about. So there is one commentary that I'm currently reading on Bhagavad Gita. So I'll definitely be interested in taking this further.
Lovely, lovely. I'll definitely discuss with you later on. Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Kushal.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the participants? If anyone wants to share something or has a question, please go ahead. You can put it up in the chat box also. I can read it out to sir. Dr. Bijlani, I
Hello,
request
sir.
you. Okay, we have someone. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
So, when a person is an atheist and wants some logical uh, or scientific points, so then how we will tackle this problem?
Right. So that's a very, very good question. So here, when we are talking about our scriptural knowledge, the unique thing about the Indian scriptures is that they are not tied to the concept of theism. So for example, if you look at the schools of Vedanta, we have Advaita, Dvaita, Visishtadvaita, and so on. And in Advaita, although Advaita school of philosophy does have a concept of Ishvara or God, but it is not really, really necessary to believe in a concept of God. So when we are talking of Sattvic intelligence over here, this has nothing to do with belief in God or disbelief in God. You are free to believe in, that completely as per your preferences. So when we are talking of Sattvic intelligence, what we mean is differentiating between what is right and what is wrong, differentiating between what is real and what is unreal. So to give an example, this is a standard example which is given by many spiritual teachers, and that is what I have also heard it from. Is that, let's say you are walking on a dark night on a kind of a lonely street where you see a tree in front of you. Let's say it's a big banyan tree, and from the banyan tree you have a rope which is hanging. Now, if it's a dark, windy night, the rope may be swirling around, and if you are slightly afraid, you may start thinking that it's a snake, not a rope. Okay, it happens quite common. This is a standard example that is given. So here, if you mistake the rope for a snake, you actually have made a error of judgment, right? So this is what we are referring to. So when we are referring to the real and unreal, right or wrong, it is in this context that if you have to take a decision in your life, how do you decide that? Using sattvic intelligence. If you believe in God, that is great. If you do not believe in God, that is also great. It doesn't really matter that much. What matters is that is your intelligence helping you in taking good decisions, or is it taking you in the wrong direction? And the purpose of this tool would be to help users and individuals to take the right decision so that their well-being, their overall satisfaction, happiness in life can increase from time to time. It may not increase on a daily basis, but over the years, it should be on a positive trajectory. And that is what the objective is. Does that answer your question, Anmol?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Bijlani, I request you to share your thoughts, please.
Kushalji, your students are really lucky to have a teacher who can deliver such a clear, simple talk on a complex subject,
Thank
and
you.
well argued, well reasoned, coherent, and so systematic, and in such a short time. I mean, you have finished well before time. Usually most speakers go on much longer. So all these qualities are so rare. And on top of that, a fine human being. Because, seeing your background, you graduated from IIT Madras and had a faculty position at IIT Delhi. You could have gone on teaching at an IIT, and that's more cushy and prestigious. But instead, you have made a conscious choice to join a little known university just because it is providing free education to bright students from underprivileged backgrounds. So your action speaks more than what anyone can say about you as a person. And then, of course, you have shown that you have a very good, deep knowledge of scriptures, and you are trying to increase it further, and not just increase it for yourself, but to be able to bring it to the uh, tools that you are very familiar with, the tools of artificial intelligence, so that it becomes accessible to the world. So I sort of was very impressed by your saying that we can all contribute to it. And I think this artificial intelligence also has a certain learning ability. So perhaps one could ask it some difficult questions, and then see what type of answers it comes up with. For example, this question about somebody not believing in God. We can ask Chat GPT, can you convince me? I do not believe in God. Can you convince me? Let's see what answer it says, comes up with. And suppose it doesn't come up with a very good answer, then we can argue with it and maybe try to improve upon the answer that we get. Now that becomes a part of the database and then improves Chat GPT. So, I mean, this type of things can also be done.
Exactly.
And as a devotee of a rather revolutionary spiritual master, Sri Aurobindo, one can try and sort of ask also questions about him. How does he stand out as compared to the other spiritual masters? What is unique about him?
Right.
Or something like that. So, this is how one can sort of go on adding to the data that is available in a tool like ChatGPT. And that's how one can contribute to it. So thank you for opening up this avenue in which each one of us can contribute. But then I see a little risk there, a risk which is inherent in internet as a whole, or any Google search or anything. The risk that I see is that suppose everybody starts teaching Chat GPT, and that will include many who do not know much, but still want to sort of put whatever little they know into it, although it's not worth it. They may put even wrong things in it, wrong information. So then, will Chat GPT be able to weed it out, sift it? Can something be built into the software in such a way that can sort of distinguish between what they call the grain and the chaff? So will ChatGPT be able to do it?
No, sir, this is actually a very good question. And this is why I mentioned that it is very important for us to build a authentic database. Because जो आपने बोला, that's actually the precisely the problem with tools like ChatGPT, that they do not have the intelligence to separate between the grain and the chaff, and they will not. They cannot. By design, they just, it is impossible. So because of that, it is very important for people like us to come together to build a database of texts which we know is fully authentic and has come from the masters, and it does not have anything which is written by anybody else. And once we have that kind of a database which is available, then there are a lot of amazing tools which can be used to extract relevant information from that database. So yeah, very, very good question, sir. Vishwanath, you want?
Yeah, please go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, Kush. So just adding to Ramesh sir's point, right? I was having some thought when he was speaking. So I had this idea from substitutions. So so currently we have switched to millets diet, and what I mean is that like traditional food items we are making out of millets and consuming, and we have seen the positive effects of it. So where I'm going with that line of thought is that in the current world, the younger generation especially is addicted to social media, which is mostly rajasic and tamasic in nature, if you basically classify it. So, I'm visualizing this tool to be more of, developing further and further, and maybe it'll come out to be like, social engineering, where people can actually, share their thoughts, share their experiences, and it can be more of like, spiritual journey together instead of blindly scrolling and wasting time on the other social platforms. This could evolve to be, at that level where people can switch from their current habits to this new habit, which will be beneficial.
Yes, excellent, excellent point, Vishwanath. And this is also a direction that I am thinking around. So the next feature that I'm thinking of building is to, so currently this is simple search box like Google, where you ask a question, you get some answer. Next step is going to be, I'm going to make it into a spiritual diary, which means that you can ask a question, it will give you some answer, and you can add your own thoughts on the question, which it will save for your reference later on. Let's say you got verse 16.5 as an answer. You can write how do you interpret that particular verse, and that will go in the database. That is going to be the stage one, that the next stage. And then the stage after that will be, as you rightly pointed out, to build a community of people where you can write your thoughts on a particular thing and send it to somebody else to comment on it. You could either send it to your friend, you could send it to me, you could send it to Sir Bijlani sir, or anybody else for that matter, or even make it publicly available for anybody to see and comment on it, so that it leads to a healthy spiritual discussion on the internet. But that has to be done very, very intelligently, because general discussions, they go down the drain very, very fast if you make it open for everybody to comment on. So I'm trying to figure out what features to use so that the discussion is useful, you get useful feedback, and it does not degenerate into a just like to and fro, to and fro, to and fro kind of a thing. So yeah, very good point, and yeah, that's definitely a direction that I'm thinking about. Yes, and would love to work with you on making it happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Kushalji, as you were speaking, one of the things crossed my mind that actually there may be a little saving feature in tools like ChatGPT, because when people put all types of rubbish sometimes on the internet, at least their name is associated with it, and they can see how many likes and how many people have viewed it and so on. So there's a certain satisfaction of vanity that comes from there. But if a person is adding to the data available on ChatGPT, that does not provide that type of that doesn't satisfy the vanity, and therefore the person may not be tempted to sort of put just about anything, and he's just adding to the database. It's just one drop getting added to an ocean, and that identity of that drop will be completely lost. So that might be a saving feature, in fact.
This is definitely true for individuals, but as you know, there are a lot of jobless people on the internet. So the moment they come to know that such a tool is there, and they can add stuff in the database. They will set up they will write a simple computer program to fill the database with all kinds of stuff. So individuals will not do, but yeah, there are people who actively love disrupting any good that happens in the world. so yeah. But yeah, definitely, I mean, this is a valuable input that we should take. Definitely, the input from the users has to be taken into consideration for building such a thing. But yeah, how we use it and how we incorporate that into the search query, that has to be figured out. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Um, Thank you so much again for sharing your valuable time with us. I thank the participants as well for being with us today.
Sir, I have question.
हाँ मनीष जी.
Sir, till now I haven't read any of the religious texts, but I just want to know much more, and I have interest in spirituality. So, from where I can start
Yes,
my
so the
journey?
link that I shared in the chat is, I would say, the best place to start. Did you see my link from bkushal.com/allaboutyoga? Let me.
Yes, sir.
देखा आपने वो लिंक?
जी सर देखा.
ठीक है, तो वो लिंक पे आप जाइए और जो भी आपका सवाल है, whatever you want to know, just ask a question.
Okay, sir.
Whatever is it
Thank you.
that you want to know. So what will happen is that you will get a relevant verse. So currently वहाँ पे भगवत गीता है और पतंजलि योगा सूत्रा से. तो इन दोनों में से कोई रेलिवेंट अगर वर्स होगा तो आपको वो मिलेगा. एंड प्लस विवेकानंदा's complete works are also available on the site now. So if your question has an answer from Vivekananda's writing, then you will get that answer also. And so my suggestion would be, currently the spiritual diary is not active on the page. But my suggestion would be that please keep a note of the answer that you get. Think about it for a while, and the site, depending on your question, will also recommend what other questions you can ask. So it will give you 3 recommendations for other questions that you can ask as a follow-up. So you can either ask one of those 3 questions, या फिर you can think of some other follow-up question that you can ask. But my suggestion is to build this questioning habit. And that is the best way, in my opinion, to read the scriptures, because that is how, Upanishads were written. That is how the Gita was written. It was all starting with a question. So you should read a scripture because you have a question whose answer is there in the scripture. अगर आपके सवाल का आंसर स्क्रिप्चर में नहीं है तो स्क्रिप्चर का आपके लिए कोई यूज नहीं है. It is of no use to you. So if you have a question and if the scripture has an answer, then definitely you should go to it. And this website that I have developed will help you in finding the answer in a very, very easy way without having to read 10,000 books. So again, my suggestion is, whatever question you have, please ask it on that website, see the answer, think about it a little more, and ask follow-up questions and see what it is saying. और आपका कोई अगर सवाल है जिसके लिए आपको वहां पे आंसर नहीं मिला, you can write to me an email and I can check and I can find an answer from some other scripture maybe. अगर वो गीता में नहीं है, योगा सूत्र में नहीं है, it may be in some other scripture, and I will get back to you कि okay, this scripture, this line says is saying the following thing.
Okay, sir. I will. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. To the new participants, I would also like to inform that we have these talks every Saturday at 6 p.m. IST, online talks on a wide variety of topics from experts from various fields, mostly under the umbrella of yoga, education, and spirituality. So all are welcome to join us every Saturday, 6 p.m. IST. The Zoom details remain the same, the one that you used today. And you can also visit our YouTube channel. I shared the link in the chat. Kushal sir, thank you so much. Thanks a lot for sharing your valuable time with us. I thank the participants as well for being with us today. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.